In October 2019, Arlington, Texas was chosen to be the home of a new national museum, unlike any other. The National Medal of Honor Museum will be a unique home of military history. The 100,000 square foot museum will house exhibits, archives, and artifacts relating to the 3,500 U.S. troops who have been awarded the medal, the nation's highest honor for valor in combat. The museum will have 31,000 square feet of galleries dedicated to U.S. troops who have received the award. The museum CEO, former Navy SEAL and NASA astronaut Chris Cassidy, said the museum will focus on education as much as preservation. The building will have 5 areas dedicated to Medal of Honor winners from the Army, Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard. The main gallery will be located in a central plaza under a 25,000 square foot slab of steel, which will appear to be suspended in midair. It will be supported by 5 pillars. Black Rifle Coffee is a corporate sponsor of the museum, as are the Dallas Cowboys. The museum's board also includes over a dozen major corporations and 6 Medal of Honor recipients, including David Bellavia, Patrick Brady, and Britt Slabinski. Army Staff Sergeant Bellavia was awarded the medal for clearing an entire house by himself on November 10, 2004, as a squad leader in support of Operation Phantom Fury in Fallujah, Iraq. He killed 4 enemy fighters and wounded a 5th in close quarters battle. Army Major General Brady flew and coordinated the evacuation of 51 seriously wounded men during a firefight in Vietnam in January 1968. Slabinski, a Navy SEAL chief and team leader, led a rescue team of SEALs during Operation Anaconda in Afghanistan in March 2002. Slabinski and his team flew to a mountaintop ambush site to rescue Petty Officer First Class Neil Roberts, who had fallen from the back of a helicopter. Slabinski led the team through almost constant combat against an entrenched Taliban force. Along with the board members, former presidents Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Barack Obama serve as honorary directors. The museum is expected to open to the public in late 2024.
All right. Welcome back. MisFitNation. The MisFitNation show. We are a show founded by a veteran and hosted by 2 veterans and a military spouse. Our mission is to get people to tell their stories to the world. If you're an author, share your tips with the Misfit Nation. If you're a musician or an actor, our audience needs to know how they too can get into the business. Coaches, we love our coaches. Come on and share your tips with the Misfit Nation to help them become better versions of themselves. If you are a corporate leader or an entrepreneur, come on and show how you did it and how hard you have fought for success. If you are a veteran, first responder, or Gold Star family, we would love to have you come on and share your story with the Misfit Nation. We always have time for you. If you're feeling down, alone, or starting to see the darkness, stop. Think about those who are around you. You are not alone. You will be missed. If you feel like your problems will be a burden to those in your inner circle or feel embarrassed, dial 988. If you are a veteran, take option 1. We need you to keep pushing forward. Don't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. If you are a new listener, welcome to the Misfit Nation show. Be sure to subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast app. Also on our YouTube channel at @the_MisfitNation. Subscribe and click the bell to keep you up to date on our latest episodes and all of our news. You can also find us on Heroes Media Group and About Face Radio. Now, let's get to the show!
All right. Welcome back to the Misfit Nation. It's our Thursday after dinner show. I know many of you are out doing what you got to do tonight, watching basketball or hanging out with family, do what you do at the club on Thursday nights, maybe trivia night, maybe singo, whatever you do. But those of you who are here tonight, thanks for being here and thanks for being part of the Misfit Nation. Tonight, we have a great guest who is so pumped up to be on the Misfit Nation. She came yesterday. And now she's back again tonight. She stands out as a remarkable entrepreneur, public speaker, coach, and author. embodying a rare blend of drive, passion, and discipline, honed over 20 years of competitive figure skating and dance with Skate Canada. As the visionary behind AMANTE Conferences and Talks, she has graced over 50 stages, captivating audiences with her dynamic speaking style and insightful presentations. With a podcasting background that includes hosting her own show and being featured on numerous others, she brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to the table. So without further ado, let's welcome Francesca Amante to the Misfit Nation show. Welcome, Francesca.
Thank you so much, Rich, for having me. I'm so honored to be here with you and your incredible audience.
It's awesome to have you. I'm glad you came back today. I was worried after you signed in yesterday, maybe she won't come back today, and then I'll have to find another show to throw on just to cover it. But thank you for coming back both days.
Of course.
It's the first time that's happened for me.
Amazing.
Francesca, I gave a little bit about you there, about 3 sentences really from your bio. If you don't mind, give us a little more about you from as far back as you want to go to how we got here today.
Absolutely. Well, Rich, I just want to first off say I so appreciate what you do here on this show and how you uplift and encourage others. Just that intro got me all pumped up. And, one of the reasons I felt there was such an alignment with this particular show is that a lot of my journey has stemmed in the, area of resilience, especially through grief and loss, actually. So a little bit about me. My mom and dad had my brother and my sister, and everything was lovely in their life. My brother actually was killed in a car accident when he was 16 years old. So my mom and dad, of course, like any grieving parents, didn't really know how to cope or what that world looked like beyond that grief and loss. And so about 5 years later, after my brother passed away, their doctor pretty much said, sorry, it's emotional for me, but why don't you try having another child and see if perhaps that kind of gives you this will to keep going and this resilience to keep going. So they tried, and then they had me, and they named me after him. So my brother's name was Francesco. My name is Francesca. All the pieces kind of coming together there. So it was interesting, Rich. So from a very young age, and just for our listeners to get a bit of an idea of why I'm so passionate about what I do, from a very young age, I always kind of felt as though even when I didn't know what the dynamics were in my family or that I even had a brother, I could notice that there was obviously this grief and sadness in the home. Even at 4 years old, I was writing them poems, trying to cheer them up because I knew something was wrong. I just couldn't put my finger on it. And when I was about 6 years old, and my parents ended up telling me that I had a brother, he had passed in a car accident, just the dynamics of why I was born. For a very, very long time, I kind of thought that if I wasn't the one taking away their grief and sorrow, I was almost scared as a young girl that I would be kind of given up, which would never happen. But that was kind of what I put on my own shoulders. Fast forward to today, after many years of competitive figure skating, dance, swimming, piano, all the things, a lot of what that taught me was the element of that resilience, that grit, that no matter what happens to you in your life or how bad things may seem, you just keep pushing, you keep going, because like your intro talked about, you don't want to make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And don't get me wrong, grief is such a long journey. It doesn't ever really stop, but there's so many incredible parts along the way that, like, at least I've learned about myself personally, that the more that we are willing to reach out to others and to really be uplifted by those around us, some beautiful things happen in the forefront of that. So nonetheless, this is what has essentially instilled this drive in me to be a speaker, to talk about gratitude, to talk about loss, to talk about grief, and kind of that like hope after grief, essentially. I ended up getting into the public speaking world. That's maybe something we can get into of how that happened. It was kind of actually really interesting. And then I started coaching. And then it was last year, I woke up this one morning and it occurred to me that I needed to write a children's book. I named it After Loss Came You, giving parents a tool to instill in their children, kind of like a little tool that my parents didn't have when they had me after a loss. And then I'm in the process of writing another book called Lead with Grit. And it's also on the basis of resilience. So that's a bit about me and what brought me here, Rich, although there's a lot more to the story, but I hope that kind of gives a bit of an intro.
That's a real good intro, and it's amazing how you got your name. It's tragic, yet they kept the name alive. So Francesco, he lost his life in a tragic car accident. They found their way by having you and starting basically over. And Francesca now is a CEO, 20 years of figure skating, and mom and dad obviously had to go to a lot of things over those years with you. You said piano, figure skating, dance, all that's a lot of social life for them while you're competing. So how far up in the competitive world did you go with figure skating?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, Rich, it's funny. I think at a young age, when I look back now, all these years later, I never really knew what was driving me, but I can recognize after doing the inner work all these years later that I think my drive to win and just to work really hard in all of those sports was that I really wanted to show that I was worthy enough to be there after my brother passed. And I think that's definitely what drove that passion in me. So I think my parents had the idea of they'd put me in a lot of sports and see what stuck. And then they ended up realizing that I was going to work hard at everything. So they just left it alone and let me do my thing. In terms of competitive figure skating, I went all the way up to the provincial level a couple times and won gold. And I was very grateful for that. However, not that winning's not lovely. And I got to experience that many times through the hard work just as a result of that. But I feel, at least in my experience, there's so much of what I learned along the way, Rich. You talk about that a bit in your intro about keeping going no matter what happens. The amount of times that you have to fall to land those doubles or triples or whatever jumps you're doing, there's so much that I learned in that. So that would probably be my favorite part. But yeah, that would be where I got to. I mean, in piano, I played piano from the time I was 4 till I was about 19 years old. There were so many integral parts that came into play, but I loved it all. And I'm so grateful that they gave those opportunities to me. I definitely will never take that for granted.
Do you still skate or play piano now?
I should play piano more than I do. So that's something that I need to work on. It's something that's very cathartic. As for figure skating, anytime that there is a rink or like an outdoor rink in whatever city I am or that I happen to be speaking in, if I have my skates with me, it is just such a beautiful thing to get to experience. So I would love to skate more, but you do what you can, but it's always going to be something that fueled me for many, many years.
Outstanding. And in that segue there, you said whenever you're speaking, how did you get into the public speaking, get on those stages, and why does that motivate you to get out there in front of people?
Absolutely. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to share this story, Rich. So it's actually really funny, how it all started. I didn't really have a big social media following back in the day. This would have been maybe 2019. And I just so happened I had went through a divorce at a very young age. I was around 20 years old at the time, or no, I guess maybe 22 at the time, many, many years ago. But 2018, 2019, I had went through my divorce. So by this time I had been divorced for a couple years, but I was kind of just making this post in reflection of the moment where that all happened, and all in gratitude, like the learnings, the teachings. And I kind of touched a bit about my brother's passing and all the gratitude that I had and what that instilled in me. And this one day, I mean, you know how it is. I think vulnerability is something that we're more comfortable to show these days, especially as founders or CEOs. I think for a long time, the aspect of failure was just so taboo. It was like everything's got to be perfect from the outside looking. So for me, making that post, being a little bit more on the vulnerable side, I had some people reach out and be like, wow, Francesca, like, good for you for being vulnerable, because it wasn't as common. And, in my head, I'm thinking to myself, I hope this was an okay decision to share about these things. Rich, I got this call from the University of British Columbia. It's here in British Columbia, Canada, and they have an Okanagan campus. And I get this call maybe about 30 minutes to an hour after I posted this post from one of their facilitators or directors out there. And she calls me. She's like, "Hi, are you Francesca?" I'm like, "I am." And she's like, "We just read your post. We're so teary-eyed. This was so powerful. We want to meet you." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like, I don't even realize these people were following me." And I said, "I'm honored." I said, "Sure. Why do you want to meet me?" She's like, "Well, we're doing this big project. It's called the Gratitude Project. And we're bringing all these incredible speakers together to raise money for this incredible charity in the mindset of like advocacy of mental health." And she's like, your post just really showed that you have a powerful, powerful message to share. And I said, "You've got the wrong person. I'm personally not a public speaker. I appreciate this, but like, there's no way I'm going to be speaking on your stage." They're like, "Trust us, come meet." So I met with them. I ended up finding out when I asked who was going to be on their panel. There was a local TEDx speaker, Mike Shaw. There was, I don't know if you know Joshua Dewick. He was a Paralympic gold medalist that was on the Ellen DeGeneres show. He was one of the speakers. And this other lady who's a fairly well-known public speaker. And I looked at them and I said, "I so appreciate this, but trust me, I will let you down. This is not where I'm meant to be, but thank you." And they're like, "No, you're going to have to trust us. You're meant to be on this panel, or you're meant to speak." So I show up, and of course, absolute imposter syndrome. I'm like, I have no idea why I'm here. But I kid you not, Rich, I got out on that stage. I started to talk. The audience was in tears within a couple minutes. And all I could think to myself was, out of all the places I've ever been and any of the things that I've done in my life, that was one of the like moments that I felt most at home, was standing on that stage with a microphone. And of course, for me, at that particular time in my life, I was getting my real estate license, and I thought to myself, why does this feel so familiar and normal to me and peaceful? And I never forgot that feeling. So I did go into the real estate industry. I had already been kind of in it a little bit, but I got licensed, but I never forgot that. So I started doing these big charity events where I'd get, all these incredible speakers together to give, just uplifting, positive energy to the community. And then as of last year, I concluded my time in the real estate industry and stepped fully into the speaking and coaching world, because I never forgot that feeling. So, and I've been asked to speak on so many stages since 2019, even when COVID was around and the world was different. I got asked to speak on so many virtual stages as well. And there was just something continually pulling me back to that. So that's my passion, Rich, is just when I get up on that stage, it's the people afterwards, even if I get to impact one person in the audience that comes up and says, I needed to hear this today. Like, I was struggling, but this reminded me that, like, I'm not alone. I've got this. I think that's just such a powerful thing that any of us in this world can instill, whether it's to a friend or whether it's us speaking on stage. I think we need that more than ever these days.
Definitely. And something we say here in MisFitNation a lot is reach one, teach one. So if me and you talking here tonight, if we reach one listener and it makes them have a better day or makes them do something awesome tomorrow and into the future, we did our job tonight.
Absolutely.
If we affect more than one, that's just gravy, but one is all we need. And that'll start that ripple effect down through the river.
Yeah. I'm sure you've heard of that starfish story, hey, Rich, where that little boy is on the shore, he's picking up the starfish and throwing them back in the water. And an older gentleman comes up to him and says, like, what do you think you're doing? As if picking up one starfish is going to make or picking up these starfish is going to make a difference. There's thousands of them on the shore. And he's like, maybe, but I just made a difference to this one. So I always loved that story. It was such a great reminder, exactly what you just shared.
Definitely. And when you started this, I mean, you went into it right as COVID started, really 2019, 2020. And you said the virtual stage, that helped you, I guess, gain your confidence on the stage by getting to do some of the virtual stuff in between getting on the big stages?
A little bit of both, I guess, Rich. I was very, very grateful. There was a TEDx speaker that got me to be his closing keynote once. There was a couple other local platforms. I got to speak on the New York State Convention panel as well on diversity and inclusion. I really enjoyed that. And don't get me wrong, I really appreciated that aspect, Rich. I think what I found to be interesting, I'm part of something called the Junior Chamber International. I've been on their national board for a couple years now. Around that time when the pandemic hit, one of the things that occurred was I competed in this effective speaking competition. So I did my local level in person. And then once everything changed, I did the regional level, the national level. I won local, then you win regional, and then I won national. But again, those were virtual. So it was very intriguing to me to compete as a speaker virtually. And then when it came to Conference of Americas, that is a convention that was supposed to be held in South Africa. And there was going to be about 15 to 20 competitors speaking all these different languages. But again, like, you're on Zoom. So one of the things that they said to me, they're like, you have to be very expressionate with your hands, your facial expressions, because you need to captivate them with just your Zoom screen. I was fortunate to be in the top 3 and the runner-up at that particular international convention. However, it taught me so much, Rich, that as much as I appreciate the virtual stage, it's allowing us to do this right now. And I feel so grateful that all the way over here, I'm able to be with your incredible audience. So don't get me wrong, the virtual aspect is a blessing. But it's interesting. Once I was able to get up on an actual stage, there's just a different feeling. Oh my goodness. Like, there's just something, and I think just feeling the people's energy in the room, seeing their eyes light up, or I definitely missed that, but it taught me so much that I needed to know for sure.
And you definitely get to, when you're live with people, you can feel the energy of them on you, and smells and senses of the whole room, lighting sense. And when you're in your own room and on the Zoom, it kind of takes a little bit of that back, because you only can really see so much on your little screen in front of you. So it takes a little bit away, but you're still getting your message out there.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
So as you grow your speaking business and your coaching brand, where do you see it going in the next few years?
Yeah, absolutely, Rich. I would say one of my biggest goals, I've just started this group coaching where I have all these people come together once a week. I actually have 2 different calls going right now. So one on Tuesday, one on Wednesday. And one of my goals with that, I just had one last night and it was interesting. I find that, and I'm finding this myself, the more vulnerable and raw and real I am with them, which is often always my goal. It's so incredible seeing the profound difference it makes in their lives. Just like the feedback of like, something really challenging happened at work that would have a year ago version of them would have completely destroyed their day. And yet they were able to remove themselves, get out their gratitude journal for a couple minutes, come back to it refreshed with a better attitude and say, hey, look, I've got 3 solutions for us. How can we move forward? And it's so rewarding seeing those little wins here and there. So for me, one of my goals would be, Rich, is just for there to be like an international level of groups that come together with these group coaching, and not so much for them, they'll be learning from me, but for me to give them a community of people that they can in turn use for their own business benefit, for them to collaborate with, and for them to be able to come back and say, oh my gosh, I've made the best friends through this, the most incredible, powerful connections. Because I'm a huge believer in collaboration over competition. I feel like there's so much abundance in this world. So I'm always, whenever I do these events or anything like that, or coaching, I try to really spotlight these entrepreneurs or these founders because none of us have, we have so much more together than we do if we're just in our own lanes, right? So I do try to really uplift them in that regard, but that would be one of my goals. And then in terms of speaking, I just, I would love to and would be honored to speak all over the world and to so many different, diverse audiences. So that's some of the things that I'm really looking forward to, and just having these books be catalysts for growth and change.
Outstanding. And you spoke about gratitude a few times, and why is gratitude important in your daily life, and how do you practice it?
Absolutely, Rich. It's funny because I think that gratitude journaling, it's kind of gotten a little bit more popular these days. If you go into a bookstore, there's all the beautiful journals. I think I kind of started that off when it maybe wasn't so popular as a young girl, especially when there were certain, sadness in the home. It was on construction paper, like by my bedside, that I would just write out a couple things that kind of kept my mind not going down a rabbit hole of like, what if, and, what if my brother was here and maybe they'd be happier if I wasn't here and he was here, all these crazy things that you think of when you're little in that particular situation. So the gratitude journal at that point in my life was kind of this outlet where I would just write about some of my dreams. I'd be like, one day I really want to help people with this, or, all these little, writings that I would do. So that's kind of how it started. But I think what it ended up turning out it was more of a mindset. So there'd be a lot of times where, things wouldn't be going perhaps as I had planned or whatever it is, or getting divorced at a young age. My mindset always went to, but what am I meant to learn through this? And we hear so many motivational speakers say, it's not happening to you, it's happening for you. And I think at a certain age in my life, maybe 8 years old, I just got to the point where I believed that if I don't think that way, life could get really tumultuous. And I just always went, this is happening for me. What can I learn? What am I grateful for in this moment? And I think too, there was this gentleman who came to my school when I was quite young, paralyzed. And he talked about how he wasn't always paralyzed, but he talked about how there was a certain point in his life where he realized he couldn't wiggle his toes. And it made him really emotional. And he talked about that. He's like, everybody out there, wiggle your toes for a second. When was the last time that you took appreciation and note of that? And I remember watching him. I was maybe 9 or 10 years old. I was young. But it changed my perspective, because I thought to myself, how many of us go up to the mirror and we're self-critical about some part of ourselves, whether it's something that we could do more of or something about our physical appearance. That's just how the world is these days. But I started looking at it but I have my eyesight, I can hear, and, I'm grateful for the fact that I can taste food and I can walk. It got to the point where I would get up in the morning and I'd wiggle my toes on the side of my bed, because I'm like, I can feel my toes. No matter what happens today, I am very, very fortunate for so many things. So I think that's where the gratitude started to happen. And of course, as you know, with anything in life, the more that people say, the more what you appreciate appreciates, right? Whatever we see starts to kind of populate around us. So I think just in seeing that, and I can definitely see that reflect in my life in the moments where I wasn't choosing that outlook, how it's so quickly for things to look a lot different when we're not looking through it in that lens. And it's not that we're trying to have a clouded vision. Of course, we want to be realistic, but I guess I've just, from a very young age, chose to believe that there's just always something to be grateful for. So that would be my answer, Rich.
Definitely is something that every day you can find something to be thankful for, something that you've done right and has gone right for you. You said earlier about falling down so many times, trying to do all the different moves, figure skating, but getting back up and learning on the fly as you went, especially probably when you were younger, hitting that cold ice, getting right back up and trying again. That doing those toe pick things. I always think of that movie with the toe pick and the ice skater and the figure skater skating together. That's what I always think about. So I start laughing. But if we continue to keep doing great things every day, you're always going to have a setback. Every day, something's not going to go right. You just got to stack the victories that you do have and be thankful that you're able to stack those victories each day. And then the next day, try to beat that number. So if you get 10 today, get 11 tomorrow, and just keep doing that. For me, I wake up and my backyard is woods, and that's a farm. So every morning I take a picture out there just to see the sun coming up. And if I'm lucky, the cows are right there. So I get a picture in it. So I have like hundreds of pictures on my phone of that. That's almost the same picture, but I'm thankful that I'm able to do that and see that every day.
Yes. That's so beautiful, Rich. And yeah, it's little things like that that really compile over time, I believe.
Definitely.
Incredible.
And as you coach people, do you instill into them the discipline, or you try to baby step them into the discipline of journaling that gratitude and maybe maintain that discipline over time?
Absolutely. You know, Rich, one of the things that I did, and I got this from another incredible coach in my life, was the 5 daily non-negotiables. And, you know, depending on the group I'm coaching, sometimes I kind of tailor them a little bit different, but I try to keep them in this particular scope. And I'm not specific on how much of each. I want them to honor their body, honor their day. However, I always say to them, every single day, I want you to be getting your hydrating your body. I need you to be getting movement. I need you to appreciate one person today, whether it's a stranger or somebody that you know. I get them to read a book, like a self-development book. So something like, or they can choose to, you know, listen to something on Audible or a podcast, something that is continually bettering their mind. The other part of that is kind of a two-prong kind of process. One of them is mirror work. So kind of when they get up in the morning, and I do coach a lot of females as well. When they get up in the morning, for them to look at themselves in the mirror and say, I love you, or you are worthy, or you are enough. And even the men that I coach, they're just like, Francesca, it sounded so silly when I did this, but it's been so impactful. So that's one of the prongs of that. And then the other prong is them doing their gratitude journaling. So saying, I'm grateful for, I don't know whether it's something about themselves or something about their external environment. But, you know, years ago, Rich, when I was going through the transition of my divorce and stepping into a new journey in my life, my coach at the time said to me, she's like, every single day you're going to look into the mirror and you're going to say, I am worthy, I'm loved, I am enough. She's like, it'll sound funny, but eventually it'll click. And I was like, I rolled my eyes. I was like, okay, let's try this. And so, you know, I would do it every morning, and it was the silliest thing. At least it felt like it. But Rich, I kid you not, like 3 or 4 months later, it wasn't when I said the first 2 sentences, but it was when I said to myself, looking at myself in the mirror, that I was enough. I started to cry, because I think for the first time I actually felt that. And so it definitely, that's what I try to instill in the people that I coach, is that, yes, these may seem like small, easy habits, but do them every day. See what happens in 6 months, see what happens in a year. And it's life-changing.
Definitely is. Giving yourself self-affirmations daily helps you out. Some people might think it's being narcissistic or whatever, but you have to be good to you before you can be good to others. You can't just always give out and not get back. If you ever seen the movie The Help, when the one housekeeper is talking to the little girl and she says, you are smart, you are beautiful, you are important. She told it to her every day. She would say that to her, and she'd make the little girl say it back. And that was just the little girl. And it's a learning tool to let you know that you are smart, you are beautiful, you are important. Don't anyone ever take that away from you. And that's the same thing you're doing with your clients, to let them know that stuff. So that's awesome.
Thank you.
So you've had good growth. I mean, you could have had a roller coaster. You could have let your divorce in 2019 at a young age knock you down and keep you down. But you took that as a stepping stone, basically, and stepped forward. It's been 5 years. You've seen great growth. How do you prioritize you in this time for self-care and to be and still lead that successful business plan.
Yeah, absolutely, Rich. I would say, just like, again, going back to those daily non-negotiables, doing those things every single day that compound into the big goals, because it's often when I start to observe, say there's a week where I'm like, oh, my energy has been a bit off, when I start to kind of dive into like, what of my daily non-negotiables am I not hitting today? And I have more than 5. I have about 10 or 11 that I try to hit every day. Some have become really routine, some haven't, but really focusing on those. But big picture wise, I mean, I would say that one of the most powerful things that I've gotten to do over the last couple of years was that if I was able to, at the beginning of the year, plan out my year and say, in January, I'm going to do this event. In February, I'm going to speak here. And I give, like, obviously more ends up filling it up, but I end up having at least 12 big things that I'm doing for that particular year. And I noticed last year when I did this, I mean, the year just, it was incredible to like reflect back on, because there'd be times where I'd look up, say at my whiteboard behind us in this office, and I'd go, oh my gosh, it's coming up to this month. I'm supposed to be doing this event. And I'd get on to planning it, and I would, but it just kind of kept me on track in that regard. And I think it's so easy for any of us for a year to just fly by just like that and say like, well, what did we do? Not that we need to be doing anything per se. But that would be one of the biggest things that has really, really helped me to continue to succeed and just stay on track. And as you know, as being an entrepreneur or CEO or anything like that, there's not really anybody telling you what to do besides maybe your coach. So keeping that self-discipline is really important.
Definitely is. And for me, it takes me stepping back a little bit sometimes to look into what's going on and to finally grasp on things. And in doing that, I realized I had 2 outstanding guys that were always in my chat, always monitoring my YouTube, so I didn't have to. So my Tuesday show is now their show. So that's the Tuesday crew. So I'm able to step back and just produce that show and breathe a little bit between my Sunday and Thursday show, and realize how we're growing as a team now, instead of just a me thing, it's a we thing.
Amazing. That's incredible. Congratulations.
Thank you. You have 2 one book and 1 book coming out, right? So tell us about the books and where people can find them.
Absolutely, Rich. So yeah, the first one is called After Loss Came You. So it's more of a children's book, but I think that anybody can benefit from it. So essentially that exact thing, I kind of want people at the end of reading, even though it's quite simplified, obviously for children to be able to read it, or the parents to read it in a way that's not too serious. But essentially in that lieu of the fact that I, for a very long time, thought that my only sole purpose was to fill someone else's void or someone else's presence, which I would never be able to do. I really just want young children out there that are born after loss, for them to have their own individuality, and that they are enough being exactly who they are. And so that's kind of where that stemmed in. Also for the fact that when I was about 19, someone looked at me and said, you don't need to be Francesca and Francesco, but being you was enough. And oddly enough, at 19, it was just a really powerful thing that no one had really ever looked at me and said. So I think the little girl in me needed to hear that a long time ago. So that's what the book is for. That's the first one, Rich. And then the second one is obviously more of a business development book and more of a personal self-growth book. And that's the one that's called Lead with Grit. So essentially it's shaping companies and cultures within those companies with resilience, and just having that power and resilience within ourselves, so that way we can better understand our team, and just continue to grow and adapt and learn together and work together no matter what happens, and not stopping just because there's a couple failures along the way. So that's what the other book's about. As for the releases, they're both going to be available on Amazon. The Lead with Grit book, so that one's going to be released in December of this particular year on Amazon. And then for my children's book, it can be any month now that I actually choose to press release, press that button to release it. So really, really excited, Rich. Thank you.
That's outstanding. And audience, MisFitNation, get out there and get them books when they come out. Look forward to them as they come forward. This episode will come out a little later in the year, so it'll give you a little more leeway to get them again if you missed the live tonight.
Amazing.
Francesca, give the audience 3 bits of advice that you would have loved to have when you were starting your business.
Absolutely. I would say the first one, forget what everybody else is doing and saying for just 5 minutes, and focus on what really is in your heart. What's your passion? Because that's going to tell you everything you need to know. At least from my family, I've learned that this life is way too short to do something that makes you miserable. So sink down to your heart, get out of your head, and ask yourself, what is it that would make me smile every day to get up and do? And how can I impact the world through that? That'd be number one. Number two would be that the small little habits every single day compound into something really incredible. So, give back to yourself first before you give back to your team, because it all starts with us. And if we're pouring from an empty cup, we know how that ends. It doesn't end very well. We need to be filling our own cup first, especially as a founder or a business owner. And then I would say number three, lead from gratitude. It's very, very easy to get caught up in, I need more of this or whatever it is. But I do believe that there's abundance in this world. There's enough incredible business out there for everybody. And if we can wake up every morning with a heart of gratitude, a lot of incredible things fall into place, because we're not putting that pressure and resistance on everything we do. We're simply just grateful for what comes. And I think that there's so much more out there that we can get if we have that attitude.
Outstanding advice. Thank you, Francesca, for that. How does someone get in contact with you if they just want to chat with you or learn more about Francesca?
Absolutely. So if any of you want to find me on Instagram, that would be one of my most active profiles. So it's, I shortened my name in the handle just to make it a bit easier. So it's the @ and then it's Fresca Amante, Amante. So Francesca Amante, but you'll see me pop up as Francesca Amante on Instagram. And then in my bio, there's everything. There's a link to my children's book, a link to the resilience coaching, and a link to my conferences that I do with all those speakers. And then lastly, Facebook and LinkedIn. You can find me on there as Francesca Amante, and I'd be more than honored to reach out to know any of this incredible audience out there listening to you, Rich. You have an incredible community here.
Thank you. And I'm sure some of them will reach out to you. Hopefully they'll reach out for you and for advice on their business plans or their authoring plans or their speaking plans. And hopefully you can get them going in the right direction, or at least point them to the right people to help them out at that time.
Absolutely.
The IG is going across the bottom right now instead of the long address I had. So I had to retype it. And then LinkedIn, she's on LinkedIn as well. Get on there and get on her bio, and you'll learn more there as well. Francesca, this has been great hanging out with you tonight.
Thank you.
It's awesome to have you here. And if you ever want to come back on again in the future, after your third book maybe comes out, you come and talk to us again.
I would love that, Rich. Thank you for your incredible energy. You're such an amazing host, and I just feel very, very honored that I got to be here today. So thank you for having me.
No problem. Have a great night.
You as well. Thank you, Rich.
Bye.
This message is from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Did you serve in the military? If so, you can obtain a free lifetime pass to more than 2,000 federal recreation sites. These sites are located across more than 400 million acres of public lands, including national parks, wildlife refuges, and forests. The lands host activities to fit any lifestyle: hiking, biking, fishing, camping, and much more. Gold Star families are also eligible for these free lifetime passes. Plus, they cover entrance fees for a driver and all passengers in a car, or up to 3 additional adults at sites that charge per person. Obtaining one is easy. Just go to the National Park Service website, nps.gov, or the National Park Service app.
Thanks for checking us out and being a part of the Misfit Nation show. Don't forget to visit our website at themisfitnation.com. That's themisfitnation.com. Check out all our past episodes and get some of the great Misfit Nation gear for you and your family. As always, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling, because we are
Misfit Nation. Misfit Nation.